What's going on, everybody? It's the Hammer, and I'm back with a special edition. Look, I promised, and I'm delivering on the Coach's Corner. We've got 10 of 11 knocked down, and on this 10th episode, we are with a very special guest. Certainly not new to the MLR, but new to this club. We're talking about RFCLA's head coach, Stephen Hoiles. Coach Hoiles, welcome to the show, mate.
Hey, Rob. Good to be back and chatting again. It's been a couple of years, but yeah, it's nice to be back here.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned it's been a couple of years. Of course, the last time you were on, you were with the LA Guiltinis. A Shield champion in 2021? Or was it 2022?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 21,
Yeah. So good times were had. But for those that don't or aren't familiar with you, can you just fill them in a little bit more on your CV? We know, or anybody that's followed you knows, that you have a strong background with the Randwick Club, and that's out of the Sydney area. So you're, of course, from Australia. But tell everybody what you've been up to since the Guiltinis, and we'll color that background a little bit for those that don't know Stephen Hoiles that much.
Yeah, excuse me if there's any intruders that walk in. I've got some creepy feet just sneaking in the background. Probably looking for an iPad. Sorry. But yeah, I'm from the Sydney club in Randwick. Sorry. Have a look at this, mate. Get out.
Well, hey, he's got the right jersey on, right? He's got a Lakers jersey.
He's a Lakers. Man. How you get? No, both of you. How you get? Oh, you just saw me shut the doors, Rob. Hang on.
Sorry.
I locked this down about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. Which little rugger was it?
I'm still there, Rob.
That's
I thought
okay.
I did a good job of shutting them out, but
that's
not enough. Yeah, mate. Sorry, I'm back at it. I'm from Randwick, a club in Sydney. It's from the town of Coogee. Oh my God, this is musical chairs at the moment. I grew up there. My father played for Randwick. I've always been a junior at the club there, and did all of my club rugby at that one club, and I played a little bit of super rugby over the course of the years between the Waratahs and the Brumbies. Never played anywhere else but in Australian rugby. That was always my whole professional career was in Australia, and that was probably a big reason why I came over to LA the first time as a coach, because after doing a bit of coaching with the Aussie Sevens, I realised that I'd never played overseas permanently. I wanted to have a family opportunity, and the LA opportunity with the Guiltinis at the time came about, and we came here in 2021, and we had two really, really amazing seasons, both personally and professionally, and from a club and family point of view. This is ridiculous. And then it ended pretty suddenly, Rob. Like as you know, like the club along with Austin was terminated all really quickly, and we went home a little bit prematurely. So I went back home, and fortunately my club Randwick, I never coached. I only played at Randwick. There was an opportunity to coach the first grade side there. So growing up, all I wanted to do was play for Randwick, and then when I couldn't play anymore, I just wanted to coach Randwick. So it's funny how it all worked out and all aligned. I had two seasons at Randwick, and yeah, that's how it worked out. I'm really thankful for being able to go back there and coach the club that is my only ever childhood club, and now to come back to LA and get another opportunity in this sports crazy part of the world. I'm very excited about it.
100%. And we're going to dig into that, folks, here in just a couple minutes. Talk more to Coach Hoiles about RFCLA, his thoughts, perspectives. Certainly, we're going to talk about that roster. I would be remiss and perhaps derelict in my duties as a podcaster if we didn't talk about that roster that LA has built going into 2025. And we're going to get all that in just a moment, but not before we hear a word from our sponsors. right, we're back. And I got to ask before we get too deep into the weeds about LA. Of course, one of our sponsors, Macron, coming in this year with the league. Have you guys got a chance to test out that kit yet? I know a few of the teams are wearing the Macron kit, some of it branded with the team's logo, some of it not yet. Where's RFCLA at yet right now?
Funnily you asked, today was the first session that we had the guys training in it. It's been drip fed to us, almost like they're teasing us at the moment. But yeah, it's slowly coming through. I think there's a lot more to get, and we're actually heading on a tour to Fiji on Wednesday. We're hoping we get sent the summer edition pretty soon, not the winter edition. Because at the moment the tracksuit pants and the fleece top is probably not much value for us training down in Fiji in a week's time. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I think guys are excited about it, and any day for a young footy player when there's kid involved, it's kit day's a good day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And folks, we're going to have some Rugby Rant kit available to us in a little bit. We'll show that off, just like Coach Hoiles will be showing off some of that kit, perhaps not in Fiji. And we're going to talk about that matchup in Fiji against the Drua during the course of this interview. But let's start from the beginning, if you will, and talk a little bit about the LA team, RFCLA, of course. You're one of 5 new head coaches in the league. It's amazing to think in a league of 11 teams that almost half the teams have turned over their skipper, if you will. What's one challenge you expect to face in 2025, Coach Hoiles?
Oh, one. It'd be nice if there's just one. I think it's going to be a lot more than that. Yeah, look, I do think the challenge is working with a squad of 30 to 35 players and dealing with injuries and not essentially having where I've always come from and the teams that I've always been a part of in other leagues around the world. You're very lucky to have second grade, third grade, or academies and A teams. And while we've got a good development program, a good academy system coming through, we're building that. That's more of a U14s, a U16s, U18s, U20s. So probably just making sure. My time in the league previously has probably taught me you've got to make sure you've got versatility within your squad, and you've got to have a fit and healthy roster, and you need some luck along the way because it's pretty rare to go through a squad with 30 players, considering you're using 23 every Saturday, and it's a contact sport, and you're turning guys around 7 days in a row consistently for 4 months.
Well, perhaps prematurely on my side, but certainly from your side, I think we need to talk about it and get it out there in the open. One of the big changes from last year to this year, of course, is the calendar. Things have been moved up earlier in the season in order to make way for the international window. And what the league has had to do is compress some of those games. There are a few weeks in there. I think it's around about 11, 12, 13 have been compressed a bit. I want to talk to you about that. It's kind of interesting. In the West, a lot of those teams, particularly Utah, I think Seattle, certainly San Diego, your California brethren or foes, be it as it may, have a really tough schedule. You guys, I think, are in an advantage situation in the West with, the 22nd, the 26th. There's 2 games within 4 days there, but then you get a little bit of a break. Come back on May 19th and May 23rd, San Diego, and then you're coming here to Chicago where I'm at, so I can't wait to see you. But, you really fared pretty well. Is this an advantage for LA given what the rest of your conference foes have to deal with?
Yeah, I think we're fortunate that I think every team gets 2 buys or buy rounds, and our second one comes the week before our back-to-back short period of games. So we're really treating it as if we've only got 1 buy, and we've got an extended period to get ourselves ready for the midweek game versus New England, and then on the way back we play San Diego. So look, at this stage, again, and I hope it doesn't sound too cliche, I don't look too much into the draw because what we might think works now might not work for us. It all depends on the roster and how healthy they are at that time. Look, I know there's been a lot made of it from a players' union point of view and looking after the welfare of the players, which I'm all for that. But at the same time, I think it's up to us as coaches. Like playing midweek games, it's been done before. It'll be done in the future in different leagues. I don't dislike the idea. I quite like it. It's mainly just the priority probably sits with us as coaches to make sure that we're managing the week before and the week after. So players never have a problem playing games. I think if you ask them, they prefer to play midweek and on a weekend than train 4 times a week. So we're not going to know if that's an advantage to us or not until probably close to the time. But um, in terms of the draw, it is what it is. Like we're happy, we're ready to go. We've only been together for a short period of time, but we've been in planning for such a long time, and a lot of these guys don't get to play much rugby, between August, September, all the way through to January, February. So we're excited to play soon.
It's interesting. As I've talked to coaches around the league, they've taken a rather matter of fact approach about some of these challenges with regard to the schedule. A stark contrast from fans. I mean, fans were all up in arms and all upset. And the reality is, you talk to especially some of the coaches from New Zealand. They'll talk about Storm Week. Where they have
Yeah.
that tough series of matches they call it Storm Week, and it's just one. It's almost like a rite of passage.
If you've ever been lucky enough to go on a tour, whether it be social or a professional tour, like some of the best parts of touring, the old 4, 6, 8 week tours was that you got to play midweek. That was
Yeah.
part of the fun. I know I'd prefer to play on a Tuesday than train a 2 hour session. Like that's
Right.
In all honesty, like if you really wanted to, you could get more contact on players on a sort of uncontrolled Tuesday session than what you would in a game. So like for the game to grow and for the game to you know reach new parts of the country, like you've got to have midweek options here and there, and to fit the number of games in to make the season fair. But again, I don't want to sound disrespectful to the song and dance that's been made about it from the players and the players union and the fans, but I think as our team, we're excited about it. We could go and play. We go to New England and play the champs midweek. That's awesome.
100%. I want to talk a little bit about some other challenges, certainly that the franchises had. Of course, they encounter a lot of difficulties in transition of ownership. Can you still
Yeah,
hear
yeah,
me, Coach?
yeah, mate.
Check, check.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, sorry about that. I think I pulled the cable out. But there's the LA franchises experience a lot of difficulties, of course, a change in ownership, location moving from Atlanta out to LA prior to last season, and of course the coaching staff. There's really been a change. Of course, you at the helm, but then you brought in Sam Harris. You brought in a really nice staff. So one question I had, and sometimes we make it's funny. I mentioned Sam Harris because Sam and I are very friendly. I consider him a very good friend of mine. Sam Harris said, teams that don't have culture talk about culture. Teams that have culture don't need to talk about it. So to some degree, he's kind of programmed in my mind that culture is it's overused these days, but I think it's relevant and important when you're a new coach stepping in. So how do you plan to change the culture, or at least in the environment that is in LA in the run up to 2025?
Yeah, firstly, we don't talk about it too much. Like it's the C word. If you talk about it's a problem, I think you definitely have to act. It's a bit like when you're playing in a game in really warm conditions. You talk about the heat, you'll notice the heat. You'll be thinking about the heat. So um, I've always, if someone is out there and can tell me the answer to this question, does winning create a culture, or does culture create winning? I'm not necessarily sure. I know that we've got to focus more on the getting the rugby side of things right, because we can be a really an amazing group of guys that love playing with each other and love going into battle and throwing up. But if they're not winning games, they're not going to enjoy themselves. So I think we've got to get the rugby side of things right. Like we only get 3 weeks together before round one. And I wasn't keen to do a lot of the learning on Zoom, which is what has traditionally happened. I know 4 years ago when I was out here on the way out here coaching, we did a lot on Zoom. We onboarded a lot of the program via Zoom. But the difference was 4 years ago, people were in lockdown and they were desperate to get on Zooms. And I think I was sitting every day at 2 o'clock waiting to get on a Zoom because that was all their day had planned for it. So we haven't done a huge amount until we got face to face last week, and we've started pretty well. And I don't know, I'm definitely a guy that leans towards don't talk about it. Just part of that I think comes into recruitment, how you recruit, who you recruit, getting the people to this team for the right reasons. That's a big part of your environment and how you want your team to be perceived. So it's funny. Every team's got to have a few alphas and a few people that are a little bit different to others, and some people can look at that as a negative environment, negative culture. But it's nice to have a bit of variety in your players, and it's nice to have a maverick here and there. And but I think it's more important, more than anything, to make sure you get your team understanding how they want to play and playing well in the first couple of rounds. That doesn't always necessarily equal winning, but you've got to be playing well, and you got to be able to walk off the field in rounds 1, 2, and 3, and know how you wanted to play, and be proud of how you played.
It's interesting. Talk a little bit about preseason. You talk about not much of an opportunity to kind of get things right before the season starts, and I do want to circle back to that because there was some very important news that came out just within a day or two of this recording. But I want to first touch on philosophically you as a coach, because you've kind of had some key points here where if people are paying attention, fans are paying attention, they really pick up on kind of your philosophy as a coach, your approach, how you want to address the boys in the sheds and on the field. So I want to ask this question: how would you describe your coaching style to fans that have yet to spend a day in camp or watch a day with RFCLA and a practice guided by Coach Hoiles?
Yeah, it's always a difficult question to answer on yourself. I'd like to think that we play a style of footy that fans will walk away being proud of, and I'd probably focus more initially on defence and discipline, and because I know that naturally, if you get the right players, and I believe we've got a really good squad, if you get the right players and you get them in good condition physically, you get them fit, and you give them a really basic but you know basic but uh, maybe basic is not the right word. You give them a game plan that they are very comfortable with and very clear on, then you allow them the opportunity to do that really, really well. That's one of the unique things about rugby. There are so many different ways you can play a game of rugby, and conditions play a part in that weekly. So I think you'll hopefully see a side in the first few rounds that defensively very, very good defensively, very disciplined, and very committed to the style of footy you want to play. So, and at the same time, a lot of people then probably might think, well, there's not much talk about the attack or the offense, but I do believe you've got the right players, and you play an attacking style of footy that they don't have to think too much about. You want to make it part of their instinct, then I think you can get them excelling. Whereas if you give them especially early on, if you give someone a really broad game plan and a playbook that's this thick, and the X's and O's, then I think they're going to worry a lot about the X's and O's, and as opposed to just the important things like the basic things in rugby haven't changed. It's about your body height and contact. It's about your depth in attack. It's about your basic catch pass. So probably like to think we're working really hard to simplify it, and that actually sounds a bit silly in itself, working hard to simplify it. But a lot of players and teams this day and age, I think, have probably an advanced playbook, and it takes away from what's actually happening in front of them, because if they're thinking 1, 2, 3 phases ahead, they're not essentially living in the moment, which is where they need to be. So, typically speaking, the sides I coach, I'd comfortably say we've had good defence and good discipline, and we've had good players and a basic attacking structure, which allows us to play a well-balanced style of footy.
Well, there's no doubt you have some players in that team that can certainly execute and play what's in front of them with not I don't want to say basic, but certainly a very straightforward game plan, perhaps. Right. So I want to talk a little bit about that component, and I'm curious as to your approach to what's called KPIs, and for people that don't know, these are key performance indicators. Obviously, every team wants to win the Shield, right? You don't jump into professional rugby unless you want to win and you want to be successful and win the championship. But overall, what are your KPIs for the 2025 team?
Look, I'm certainly not a person that'll present KPIs to the team, and I don't have certain metrics that I'll decide that will decide whether we're successful or not. Like, in its simplest form, maybe it's because I'm a young, naive coach. I think success is giving yourself an opportunity success is winning the title, and I think that sort of the step below is making sure you're giving yourself the opportunity, and you do need a few things to go your way, but I think this club last year had a really disrupted back back end of off season and lead into round one. They were relocated from Atlanta. They didn't have full squad with visas. They didn't have fit players with injuries and lack of work done in the off season. So there was a lot of reasons why LA that in 2024 had the season they had, and now they're not excuses. And certainly the best thing about this year is we don't have those excuses. We've got a fit squad. We've got them. All the visas have been done. We've got everyone training in the one location in our own gym. A lot of things last year were very difficult. They were training out of a public gym. They were working on different fields over the course of every day. They were driving out different parts of LA, and LA, if you haven't been here, is not that easy to drive around some days. The club has worked really, really hard on making sure that the squad's available. They're here, they're settled, they're fit, and they're ready to play in round one. So I think a lot of effort's gone in the back end of the year, and that's way more important than people think. I think fans don't get a glimpse of that, and the work that's done between August through to December is vital, because if you don't get yourself set up for a good start to the year, it's a sprint. Like, it's a 4-month season plus finals. You got to get it right at the start.
Well, talking about getting it right at the start, as of this recording, I think just yesterday or today, it came out that RFCLA will be traveling to Fiji to play Drua for a preseason match. That has got to be some of the most exciting news, at least, to start off 2025. So, can you help fans understand the significance of this? I mean, I think some fans are looking at this like, here's an opportunity to answer the question about where this league is at competitively across other domestics. Is that in the back of your mind, or is it for this team just about getting prepped for week one on February 15th?
Yeah, there's a lot that we can try and achieve in the course of that week. It's a training week. It's a time to spend a lot of time together on the field that we haven't had a huge chance. We've been here for a week now, and with what's going on in LA, been some disruptions, as you imagine. So getting over there with the squad will be great. Testing ourselves against one of the more exciting teams in world rugby, not just in Super Rugby. Like, there's a huge number of these players that are current internationals for the Fijian squad. There's a lot of them that haven't been internationals yet that will be very soon. There's a huge Polynesian contingent in rugby across the MLR. There's a number of reasons why this is a really exciting trip for the club and the MLR, and I think it's hopefully it's the start of a relationship where you see a fair bit of crossover between the super teams and some of the teams in other competitions wanting to spend time against or in America, trialing against MLR teams, or having MLR teams travelling internationally to do some of this. Rugby's one of our greatest assets. We're a global game. It's so well known all around the world. America's still that sort of final frontier that everyone's desperate for rugby to start dominating, and I think it all helps. It's a little step forward for the game in America, I believe.
You touched upon it just briefly, and we talked behind the scenes before we started to the interview and started recording. Obviously, disruptions you mentioned playing, a potential role in not just the start of the club, but possibly the preseason game. First of all, how are the boys and their families faring? Is everybody doing okay? And secondly, is this a distraction as you guys are starting to build up to that first week of MLR 2025?
No, I think it's not. We're the fortunate ones. We can't say it's a distraction. We're like four beaches, south of where all the trouble is at the moment, and so it's literally just down the other end, which is we see Malibu from where we're all based, and it's been very bizarre because the winds have pushed it basically out to the ocean and not necessarily down to us. Although for the first 48 hours it was like an ash cloud. Sadly, like being from Australia, we see a lot of bushfires, and we get this quite regularly. I don't think any of us have ever seen the sheer number of houses that have gone. That's probably the part that's been just very bizarre, and we're just starting to see a few of the effects now. Like the schools back today, there's all the local schools where we live in, which is the South Bay. They're all starting to get huge influx of the kids from Malibu and Palisades and whatnot. So it hasn't been a distraction. That's not fair for us to say that. It's just been sad for I've lived here before for a couple of years and back here now, but it's just sad for everyone to see what's actually happened. And um, the team's actually down there now at one of the sort of food warehouses helping pack emergency food, and everyone's trying to help where they can. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks, that's for sure. But we've been, considering what's gone on, we've been pretty lucky. We did have an emergency evacuation message come out a couple of days ago, and that was actually it was incorrectly sent to 10 million people, believe it or not, an evacuation message. So that sent a little bit of a scare amongst the club. So we had to go through like an evacuation plan, and which there's probably the part for us is like there's so many people that aren't from LA. There's that live here in this team. There's a lot of players that just arrived from overseas with wives and children and pregnant fiancés and wives and whatnot. So that was a bit scary, and we don't want players feeling like they've got to get out of LA. We don't know the area. So many of us don't know what's outside of LA well enough to just go and evacuate. So our plan was just to go and sit on the beach at Hermosa Beach with our supplies and our loved ones and see what happened. But it's been it's been an interesting week. Yeah.
Well, we wish everybody in LA the best wishes possible for the outcome, and hope that they all soldier through. And it's tough. And for anybody that watches, I'm going to partner with a friend of mine to see if we can't help and support any way we can, at least the rugby community out in LA. So we're thinking of you folks. But
I might just add to that. Sorry, Rob. It has been pretty tough for some of the local clubs. Like I know Pasadena, who we're supported really well by Santa Monica, LA Rugby, Belmont Shore, Pasadena. And Pasadena have been hit really hard, and so there'll be lots. I'm sure there'll be times for the MLR and the clubs to help out. And yeah, that's you want to be able to help them straight away when their fields and all of their supplies and their schools and everything's been torched. That's pretty sad. So there'll be an opportunity, hopefully, for the community to get behind the junior clubs.
100%. We know. I think UCLA had to postpone one of their tournaments recently too. So certainly the rugby community has been affected, and we wish them all the best from the Rugby Rant and all those that watch. So wish you all the best. And I want to get more into something we've kind of hunted and pecked around, but I think it's an opportunity now just to get into it straight away, and that is this roster. RFCLA, not only busy in hiring someone of your caliber, bringing you back to the United States, but of course you've rounded out your staff with a really talented group of coaches. But then you've added a lot of new players that it's really changed the complexion of this team. But man, has it added an immense amount of depth. And I'm just so people understand. I mean, Christian Leofano, former Wallaby number 10, right? Then you got, Billy Meeks, of course, his resume stands on its own. Robert Mapo, a young kid on the wing who's just like 6'4", 230, 240, just an immense mountain of a kid. Let's see, Ed Timpson, Nick Chan will be repartnering with Matthias Jensen, and then Micaiah Wynard, it's Wynard. My apologies. Ben Sugars. Man, like the list goes on. I'm looking at this list. Do you guys? Is there any pressure for this back line to perform? I mean, it certainly is stacked, and that's not even to mention a guy like Ben Lesage, right?
No, we don't have Ben Lesage.
Sorry.
I'm happy to add him if you want to add him. I'll throw his name in there.
Sorry, I'm thinking. Sorry, Andrew Coe. My apologies. A different Canadian.
No,
and then Reese McDonald. I can't leave out the back of the year from New England last year. I mean, is there pressure on this back line, or are they just a veteran savvy?
I don't know if there's pressure on them. I think as I said, we don't have excuses from a playing roster and a being prepared point of view. And the club probably could have said that this time last year. Genuinely, they could have sat back and said they were disrupted into the start of the MLR season. So we don't have that. As I said, the club's worked really hard. That's part of it. It's finding the right players and look, starting with the coaching staff. Sammy Harris, he's been head coach in MLR for 4 seasons. He's got a successful record. He's played and coached in multiple parts around the world. He's played rugby league for 2 of the sort of big Sydney clubs. He's played rugby union in Australia and Japan. He's coached rugby union in Japan and America. So we're very fortunate to have him. And I think the balance of Sammy being so entrenched in USA Rugby and MLR, like a lot of those recruitment decisions are the fact that Sammy's got a good understanding of the MLR and the players and the draft system. So that's been invaluable. Dave as a player and captain, he's won a Super Rugby title at the Waratahs. He's won an English Premiership title. He's won a European title. He's won a US MLR title, all as a player and a captain. So decent leadership qualities there. And I think when you add in the fact that Adam Fry's our general manager, and those guys, and we're all good mates. We've played together. We've had good long relationships, but you do build up over the course of your career. You do build up relationships with people and a network of people, and that's probably how you're able to recruit so well, I think. And I think LA is not a hard place to sell. Hey? Like a lot of people would like to be playing rugby in LA. It's a amazing part of the world. It's some of the best weather in the country. So making sure you can prove that you can set up a good program, you can have good facilities, a good environment, you can put them in nice parts of the world where they can feel safe and their families can feel safe. I think that's a big part of how we recruited. So we're very happy with who our squad is, but at the same time, it's just a bunch of names on paper at the moment. There's not pressure on them from anyone else other than ourselves. Like they know they're a good team. They know they've got the capability of being a good team. They know that they've got good players there. And then comes the challenge of making sure that in a really short period of time you get players from all different parts of the world. Some have been in MLR, some have never played it. We've got really good young halfback, Taz Smith, who was here multiple years. He's played a bit number 10 for the club, but he's a really good up-and-coming halfback with a US passport. We've got Gonzalo Bertram, the Argentinian, starting number 9. Like to be able to get a play like that to this part of the world, he's a tier 1 international starting halfback, and he wants to play in the next World Cup. So he's using the MLR as his launching pad to get himself to the 2027 World Cup. So there's a lot of responsibility on us to make sure that we provide the right environment for players like that. And I love the fact that we've got a lot of young players from different parts of the world that they've used the MLR and they've used this club as their first chance to be professional rugby players. So I don't think there's pressure on them. I think there's pressure on us as coaches to make sure that we set up the environment well for them and give them an opportunity to play winning, good, positive rugby, but also get their careers to bigger and better places after here.
You mentioned the draft earlier, which is something unique to the United States, of course, for people like yourselves, or for guys like Coach Cooper or Coach Minenti. They really in the foreign domestic leagues, they don't have a draft system. We have it, of course, here. So I got to ask, you guys have 3 draft picks. At number 26, Pat Beattie, number 32, Caleb Thomason, and number 33, Leighton Delzell, all taken in the 2024 draft. What do you like about this group of draftees? And with such a depth of roster, will these individuals be able to contribute at all in 2025?
Yeah, that's the hard part about the draft is that, no disrespect to rugby in the States, but the draft works in so many other sports. And I'm not saying it doesn't work in rugby, but drafting players from college in basketball and baseball and football, they've been in programs that they're ready to go into professional sport. It's probably not there yet in rugby, as in terms of the college game is probably a little bit of a step below where it needs to be, below the MLR. So work with those draftees and getting them in the program to make sure they get the opportunity. The step is probably a little bit higher than the MLR would like, I've been completely honest. But I do like the idea of it. I think it adds a huge amount of excitement. It gives the players in college something to aspire to. So our draft picks have been, we haven't finalised terms with all 3 of them. 2 of them are working at the moment in the squad, but how we work them into I said at the start of the call that the squad number of 30 to 35, that's one of the challenges. That's why the draft is so important, because you do need those players. You're going to need them at some stage, so you've got to get them ready. So that's probably one of when people ask what is it like coaching in America compared to other parts of the world, that's a good example to use. You're coaching players who are out of college that are athletically generally really good because of the programs they've been on for the last few years, but they haven't had 30 or 40 games a season, which is what a lot of other tournament, a lot of other competitions around the world will provide. So getting players upskilled really quickly is important. So I do enjoy the process of the draft, and I understand the reasons behind it. It's probably just on the game to get the college game a little bit closer to the pro level, as in what it's got it with basketball and football and other sports here in the States.
It makes a lot of sense for sure, and I think that's one of the things certainly USAR and CRA are working on, and NCR certainly is contributing to that as well. I want to talk a little bit more about this roster that's been assembled. And I'm going to go a little off the cuff here. Of course, we talked about Sam Harris, and I know Sam well, talked with him a lot when he was here in Chicago. And I think one of the things that challenged him most was keeping that roster of players happy, so to speak, and engaged, because he did have such a depth and wealth of riches and talent. So I guess that's my question. How do you deal with that? I mean, as I looked across your roster that you've assembled, I mean, you could almost put together two solid back lines that could be competitive with any MLR team. So how do you, as a coach, how do you make them all happy? How do you keep them all engaged?
Uh, I don't know if keeping them happy is the priority. To be fair, I think it's about making sure that we want to make sure that the program's respected. And I find in rugby you get enjoyment in winning. Like whatever happens off field, winning on a weekend makes your team happy. So part of having a really good team and a good squad is that unfortunately, you need good players missing out. I feel like I need to be. I'm looking forward to having some really tough conversations with quality players to tell them that they haven't made the side in certain weeks. And that's as long as they're getting the right information, they're getting a fair feedback, and that's probably all you can ask. To be fair, I don't think you can keep them happy, but I don't think we get employed as coaches to keep them happy. I think we get employed to make the team better, and hopefully that's part of it. So um, again, like there's pros and cons of having certain players of different ages in your squad. You have I had a really young and enthusiastic squad at Randwick over the last couple of years, and I know that the way I coach and the messages that I would have delivered then wouldn't necessarily work in the same team I had 2 years ago here in LA when you're coaching, Matt Giddo and Adam Ashley Cooper. So you do have to be pretty clear with your communication to the players, and it goes back to making sure you've got a game plan that's clear and it's understandable, and it doesn't need to be too complicated. And probably out of all of that, you've got to have a style of footy that can keep players accountable, and that's important to make sure that at any given time on the game you can ask the player where he is or why he was there and what was he planning on doing. Now he might not always get it right. Actually, they probably won't always get it right, but you got to make sure that they were clear in their mind what they were trying to do. So I don't think that keeping them happy is my job. Like if I did that, I won't have a job for too long. So um, I think we'll set up an environment where they're challenged and they'll know what they need to do to get into the side, and they'll know that there's competition snapping at their heels for their spot. But that's. I hope I've answered that correctly, Rob. But it's a weird one. I understand Sam went through a difficult time at Chicago as a coach, and had a few chats with him about it. And I've been in teams where there's been relationship breakdowns with coaches all the time. We've probably got to draw on our experiences, and again, like spend more time with we work with a pretty basic game plan and try and keep it very simple for the players, which allows us to hopefully have good relationships and good respectful relationships with players.
Yeah, and you almost kind of answered my next question a little bit, but I want to dig just a shade deeper, as this is the last question, and then I'll let you get back to the little ones and spend some time with your family. But obviously, I mentioned it before. LA turned over a whole new staff. You brought in and leaned into individuals that you worked with in the past and know well and have a good working relationship with. And you've mentioned some of them, from Sam Harris to Dave Dennis, et cetera. So with such an MLR experienced staff, how much do you lean into these individuals for input, just on day-to-day, practice plans to, filling out a roster 23 in preparation for game day?
Yeah, like we're a pretty small staff in terms of our numbers. There's three coaches. I've had other roles, full time roles in rugby. We've had almost double that at least. And if you went to Super Rugby, it's 6 or 7, and Premiership Rugby, it's 8 to 10, and Test Rugby, you've probably got 12 plus. So it'll take us a little bit of time. Sammy, Dave, and I. Dave and I have had plenty of time together as players and coaches. Um, and Sammy and Dave and I all get on, and we've probably got a very similar philosophy on the game. So, um, like they're in charge of. We're pretty clear. Like Dave's in charge of set piece, attack and defence. Sam's in charge of first phase, attack and defence. So the first two phases that we get the ball or we have to defend it, Sam's in charge of that. Dave is the part before it. He's in charge of competing for the ball on defence or winning the ball on attack. And I'm in charge of anything on multi-phase, attack and defence. So when you talk to a lot of other coaches, a lot of other teams might have an attack and a defence, but we kind of cross over a fair bit and open communication. Like we all, Dave's just trying to get his family settled here in LA. He's got his wife and 4 kids trying to get over here. He's rushing off to visit a house today, but he said to me before he left, I'm going to send you through what I think we need to do tomorrow, and you just amended how it has to happen. And that's kind of how we work, Like I'm not a I've got a lot of plans, Rob, but a lot of them are up here in my head. You see my planner behind me, that's all for show. But I don't we talk a lot, we communicate a lot, and as I said, we wouldn't have gone into this together if we had difference in belief beforehand, and maybe that's because we're from a similar part of the world, but we trust each other really well. Those guys have complete autonomy on their sections. Sammy's also in charge of the backs, Dave's in charge of the forwards. So while we haven't coached the game together yet, I'm confident we've got a group of coaches that the players will respect, and vice versa.
Well, certainly you didn't have to put up the asterisk on the Rugby Rants account. This is this borders on R-rated sometimes, at least in terms of language. So no, but it's I love the insight you provided for fans and your perspective on how you're going to work, how you're going to marshal, if that's the appropriate term, your coaching staff and what their responsibilities are. It's a little bit different and a unique perspective, which I love to see because it gives our fans kind of just opens them up to the different approaches that coaches have within the game of rugby, which is awesome to see. So we certainly can't wait to see how that ferrets out in that first preseason match against the Drua. Hopefully we'll be able to catch it here in the States, because it'll certainly give us a glimpse of how RFCLA will fare going into the first couple of weeks of the season, mate.
Yeah, we can't wait to get down there, Rob. Like we love. I've been in Fiji many times. It's really warm this time of year, playing against a quality side that are ready to play Super Rugby, and it'll be a good step forward for them, MLR, and it'll be a great week for us because we've got a lot to do in a small period of time, and we can't wait to go on that flight. So thanks for the chat, and happy to do it again throughout the year, mate.
100%. I'll be circling back with you. And like I said, you guys are coming to Chicago, so I can't wait to catch up with you in person. I believe that is going to be in May, if I'm not mistaken. May 19th. So I'm sure I'll see you then. We'll get a chance to chat and maybe catch up before the match and talk a little bit about the game, so that I have something to put on the broadcast when you guys roll into town. But I sincerely appreciate you coming on again and joining the show. It's always a pleasure to have somebody of your caliber and with your perspectives on rugby, and provide that to fans, because that's what we do. We try to grow the game one fan at a time. It's with somebody like yourself that we engage more fans.
And look, we're the same. You guys need access to players. It's part of what we're doing out here in the MLR. So yeah, always happy to help, Rob.
Absolutely, 100%. Thank you so much, and we wish you and your family, your own personal family, as well as the RFCLA family, all the best with the challenges and difficulties of being out there in the area, and hope you guys continue to stay safe, mate. And fans, we're going to be coming back with the Coach's Corner each week until all 11 coaches go. And we can't wait till February 15th when opening day happens. I know a lot of you are chomping at the bit, and folks, if you can, go out there and get some Macron kit for day one. It's going to be trickling out there soon. I hope that we see RFCLA's kit out there on the pitch when they play the Drua here in just a couple weeks. So once again, thank you so much, Coach Hoiles. It's been an absolute pleasure for you to join us. And folks, again, check back in with us, not only for your daily rant, but also for these great insights on the Coach's Corner. And with that, we will see you at the next.